Welcome to the Get Your Life Together Girl podcast. I'm Danielle Van, a cognitive behavioral therapist, life coach, meditation teacher, and author. And this is your go-to show for a powerful blueprint to personal growth and empowerment, where we dig into the 5 master areas of your life: emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, and financial health and well-being. So if you're tired of feeling stuck and ready to break through the barriers holding you back, whether it's trauma or you simply don't have the tools, you found the right place. We're combining Eastern and Western medicine with real, raw, unapologetic conversation to shake up your mindset, elevate your life, and help you release the old while taking action towards your very best self. What does it mean to be fearless? I sat down with Rhonda Britten, a name that may be familiar to you from her repeat appearances on Oprah. She is also the founder of the Fearless Living Institute, and together we explore fear, how it shapes us, how we can summon the strength to stand tall in the midst of trauma and hardship, and how we can claim our power while we step into the unknown and embrace fearlessness in the face of any story. Rhonda shares one of her most defining moments as she stood witness to the murder of her mother at the hands of her father, how that invoked her fear, and how she has spent every day since then healing and teaching others to find themselves in the darkest of days. We're even handing over action tools and steps that you can put into your own life right now. So if you've ever felt like you aren't sure if you can keep going, or you're looking for inspiration on how to face those hardest moments, this is the moment you've been waiting for. So let's not waste another second. The Get Your Life Together Girl podcast starts right now. So fear, it's something I talk about so often. It is one of the things, one of the emotions of feelings that can absolutely dictate our lives, change the way that we handle ourselves, the way we show up, the way we even feel about ourselves. And I am so excited to talk to you, Rhonda. We're talking about fear, but fearlessness, right? Living in a space that we are not
That's
only
right.
living in fear. So I'm so happy
That's
to have
right. Thank you. Thank you. Well, it's really about, how do I move through the feeling of fear when it comes up? Because bottom line is, if you are wanting to go and take what I call a stretch, risk, or die, if you are
you.
wanting to follow your destiny, if you're wanting to follow your heart, if you have a big dream or a big goal, hey, if you want to get up tomorrow morning and you've been having a difficult time doing that,
Yes.
fear is the one thing that will stop you from living the life your soul intended. Its job is to stop you from doing that, because fear could care less if you're happy.
Right. Does not discriminate at
Does
all.
does
No.
not discriminate.
Tell our
No, it
audience
is.
who you are for just a moment.
Oh my gosh. Oh, okay. Short story, long story. Okay. Well, I am. Well, I'll just tell you how I came to be. How about that? Because I think,
Please.
the seed of our destiny is in our worst day of our lives. So if
Mm,
everybody right now can just think of really tough days, maybe a tough, like really tough, like if you could say the worst day of your life, I
yeah.
do believe that that's where our seed of destiny is.
Amen.
And mine was when I was 14 years old.
Mm,
And I grew up in a little tiny town in Upper Michigan, 365 inches of snow a year,
right.
2 restaurants, Douglas House, big boy restaurant. That's it. And my parents had recently separated. It's Father's Day, and my father's coming to take us all out for brunch. Big
Mm,
deal. My mother's in her bedroom putting on her beehive hairdo, fluffing it up, getting on her
right.
rose colored lipstick, blue eyeshadow. And I'm in there, and my dad walks in the back door. Come on, come on, come on, come on, girls, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's
Mm,
go. And my 2 sisters are in the one bathroom we have. We lived in about an 850 square foot home, the 5 of us, and so they're fighting out in the bathroom. Me and my mom start walking out to go to brunch, the fancy brunch with my father.
mhm.
And my father, it starts raining, so he says he's got to get his coat from the car. Now, this coat is a tan Naugahyde leisure suit coat, which is, of course, really cool back in the day.
Right.
And my father opens his trunk. Me and my mom start walking out, and I notice out of the corner of my eye, he does not have a coat, but he has a gun. And
Mm,
he starts yelling at my mother, "You made me do
mm,
this. You made me do this." And he fires. And I start screaming, "What are you doing, Dad? Stop. What are you doing?" And
right.
he cocks the gun. He points it at me. I think I'm next.
Mm.
And, he blinks, I blink, he blinks, I blink. We're like, frozen in time there. And my mother, with her last breath, with already one bullet in her, shouts out, "No, don't." And my father, realizing my mother is still alive, takes that bullet intended for me and shoots my mother a second time. And this second bullet goes in my mother's back. She collapses in the car, bullet lands on the car horn. And for the next 20 minutes, all I hear is, eh.
Wow.
And then my father cocks the gun for a third time, puts it to his head, and fires. So in a
Right.
matter of 2 minutes, I was the sole witness of watching my father murder my mother, commit suicide in front of me. And I
Right.
don't know about you, Danielle, but what that did for me is I believed it was my fault.
Hmm.
I'm 14.
Natural.
I didn't stop it. I did nothing heroic. I didn't kick the shins, right? I didn't
Right.
grab the gun. I didn't jump for my mother. And for the next 20 years, I had a battle of internal Rhonda, right? The real
Yeah.
true Rhonda versus the external Rhonda, right?
Right.
So the external Rhonda drank, became an alcoholic, got 3 DUIs, 3 suicide attempts.
Yeah.
The internal Rhonda, uh, straight A student, got a scholarship to college. Everything's fine. No, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. Right.
Yeah.
And those two Rhondas basically started to collide, as they eventually will for everyone.
Right.
And so that third suicide attempt, I realized that I'm not very good at killing myself,
Yeah.
and I've got to figure out another way.
Right.
And mind you, those 20 years that I was doing all this, I was also going to workshops and go to therapy. Like, I was doing everything
Mhm.
right. I was
Right.
doing all the right things.
Yeah.
And it was really that third suicide attempt when I asked myself, okay, Rhonda, your life is not changing, and I think you have to start over. And I thought to myself, what do kindergartners do? Well, kindergartners use a calendar and gold stars. So I went to the store, got a calendar and gold stars,
Hmm.
and started giving myself a star for anything good that I did, anything. And I'm
Right.
talking about got angry and didn't break anything, right?
Hmm.
So after 30 days, I had 30 days of gold stars, and that gave me hope that maybe there was another way. Maybe I could transcend
Right.
this. Maybe I could leave my past behind. So when you ask me who I am, I'm a woman who was caught in fear's grip by the throat for 20 years.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
out of my own final desire to live
Yeah.
and figure this thing out, I had to face fear in and of itself. And mind you, I'll say one more thing about fear is I grew up in Upper Michigan, like I said, and I'm Finnish. I'm 100% Finnish. We don't talk about feelings. We're not
Right.
afraid. So if you would have asked me during those 20 years if I was afraid, I would have looked at you like you're crazy. Like, I was never
Right.
afraid or scared, right? So I
Right.
think that's the illusion. That's the fallacy. It's like, well, I'm not afraid. It's like, well, you don't think you are, right? You don't have a relationship with your fear, but trust me, if
Yes.
you are not living the life your soul intended, trust me, fear's got you.
Yes.
And I basically decided to take the blind off my own eye and started to
Mhm.
admit that I was afraid. Just even
Yeah.
admit it.
Yeah.
And then built a relationship to it and then transformed it. And now I help other
Mhm.
people do the same.
Right. So much in that comes up for me, right? Hearing you say, of course, that made me feel like that was my fault. It
Yes.
makes me think about so many women who I've sat with, and I know you have too, who have said, this thing has happened to me. And
Yes.
I always
Yes.
stop and I say, you're right. That happened to you. You're not the
Mm-hmm.
driving force of that thing. And it
Mm-hmm.
keeps winning over and over and over
Mm-hmm.
again. Thoughts on hearing kind of that in your own experience and then seeing it so often play out. Just those two words, to you instead of because of me.
Yeah. Well, I think that obviously you're very wise. And, the role of victim
Hmm.
is epidemic in our
Yeah,
culture.
it is.
Because if we're a victim, then we don't have to take responsibility. We don't have to, it's somebody else's fault.
Right.
And then I stay innocent in some weird way. It keeps me innocent, right? It keeps me a good
Mhm.
person.
Right.
It keeps me a good person. It keeps me somebody who's caring. It takes, somebody who I was doing the right thing. And so
Right.
we can somehow talk about ourselves in a positive way because these mean people, these evil people are doing this to me, right?
Right.
So is it done to you? Okay, sure. Is it done for you? Absolutely. And
Absolutely.
and is it done because this is part of your path and you have an opportunity to change it at any moment? Yes.
Yes.
So that's when we have to wake up. Now, waking up is the the number one thing that must happen. We must wake up to what's happening, what we say, what we think, what we feel.
Right.
We must wake up. And that is not necessarily, it's two-handed, right? On one hand, it's like the most amazing, brilliant thing that could ever happen.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, it's like, oh, sugar beans. I've been keeping my own self stuck all these years. It's like,
Right.
yeah, you have. And so this is where we come into no shame, no blame, right? No guilt, no
Yeah.
worry, right? We have to decide. We must decide. We must choose to
Mm-hmm.
decide.
Mm-hmm.
Are we willing to be wrong about everything to find the right life for us?
Mm.
Are we
Mm-hmm.
willing to be wrong about everything? And if being right
Yeah.
and validating your existence
Yeah.
and pointing the finger and saying, well, this is the reason the way I am. And I did that for 20 years, mind you. I
Right.
could point it out. And oh, by the way, if I pointed right now, like, well, you know what happened to me. And if I became homeless, Danielle, like if I was sitting on the
Right.
street drinking, people wouldn't be like, let's help Rhonda. They'd be like,
Right.
well, you know what happened to Rhonda, right?
Right.
So
Exactly.
we just point and go, well, yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
It's like we don't go, we don't take that compassion and then shift it onto ourselves and then say, wait a
Right.
minute, what can I do differently? So we have to
Right.
wake up, and it's scary to wake up because then we feel, right? Then we feel and
Yeah.
then we see. But without that, we will not change.
Right. Can we talk about what that looked like for you personally? Because I know it's the foundation to everything you're teaching and what you're doing in the world, which is immense. So, can we talk about that first and then talk about how do we shift? How do we take ourselves
Yeah.
out of that?
Yeah. One of the things that I had to recognize is that one, I had to admit I was afraid because I didn't admit it. I didn't
Right.
admit it after my father killed my mother. I didn't admit it, when me and my sisters, lived in our family house for the next 2 years, or, you know, uh, I didn't admit it ever. And so the first thing is to admit what we feel. And
Right.
most of us do not know what we feel.
Mm.
And that's been proven by neuroscience now that the number one way for emotional intelligence is to have a wide vocabulary of feelings.
Yeah.
So just admitting what you feel. So walking around with a feelings list, because it's normal not to know what you feel when you first start doing this.
Hmm.
The second thing is I had to admit to myself that I didn't know who I was,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that was mind blowing to me.
Mm.
And what do you mean I didn't know who I was? No, I didn't know who I was. And so my favorite color was green because my boyfriend in kindergarten's favorite color was green.
Yeah.
My ex-husband's favorite food was Mexican, so my favorite food was Mexican. I mean, I really believed that that was mine,
Right.
right? And so I
Yeah.
did this. I did this experiment where I asked myself every minute of the day, basically,
Yeah.
eh, do I like this? Do I like this? Do I like that? What color wall? Do I like this ring on my finger? Do I like what I'm eating? Do I like the straw that I'm using? I mean, I literally asked myself that for, days on end, for
Right.
months. And I started to recognize how much of me, what I thought me
Right.
was taken from somebody else's idea of who I should be.
Sure. Yeah.
And I had no idea. I had zero idea. So it's just recognizing, like, the first question is, do you want to keep living the way you are? Period. End of story. Yes or no?
Right.
If the
Yeah.
answer is no, you want to change something, great. Then there's some work to do.
Hmm.
Next thing to do is to admit, maybe I do have some fear. Maybe I have some fear. So, quick example is most people blame themselves and shame themselves and beat themselves up, right?
Right.
And I procrastinate. Oh, I'm a perfectionist. Oh, I'm a people pleaser. Oh, I wish
Right.
I could put boundaries up. Oh, I'm just too caring. I just got so big heart. I just can't do
Right.
it. I feel so mean. Right. Well, all of those in the world of fearless living are what I call fear responses. Those aren't actually
Mhm.
the problem.
Yep.
And so what we think are our character flaws, what we think are our problems, are actually fear responses. And
Mhm.
if we can start seeing how we operate in fear, instead of looking at it as a character flaw or there's something wrong with me, then we have an escape hatch,
Yeah.
right? Then we have a
Yeah.
way out.
Yeah.
And so we have to change our vocabulary. We have to start seeing ourselves, seeing the way we speak about ourselves and to
Yeah.
ourselves. We must start shifting that.
Yeah.
So that's the beginning of my journey of how I started to transcend my fear. But the first one was surrender and admitting that I was afraid.
Yeah. So important to hear you say that, many people don't understand emotions. It's what we talk about here over and
Hmm.
over again on the podcast. It's what I teach. It's so true because one, we're not sitting in the kindergarten class and we're not getting
Yeah,
that
that's right.
education, right? Which we should. Oh my gosh, things would change so much if we had that. I think the other thing, at least from my perspective and hearing what you're saying, and again, very reminiscent of other conversations that I've had with many, many women, is the fact that your feelings, your emotions are not traits.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Right. And so if
Yeah,
we understand that, like, this is not a full ownership of every single thing that you
that's right.
are. And if
That's
I
right.
can get out of that space of fear is me, this is the
That's right.
identity,
That's
things
right.
open up. And then that is that acceptance and that is that surrender.
That's right. So feelings, we have feelings, as you know, they're based on what we eat,
Right. Yeah.
whether what we drink. They're just energy signals.
Yes.
So, we think they are who we are, just like you said. And if we start recognizing, you mean if I change and don't eat waffles for breakfast but eat eggs, I'm going to feel differently? Why, yes, you are.
Yes.
Yes. If
Absolutely.
you take a vitamin, i.e., in case if you're low on certain minerals, yes, you will be different. Yes, you will change. You mean if I drink 8 glasses of, yes, you will start feeling differently.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean if I take a walk around the block? Yes, you will start feeling differently.
Yeah.
So we have so much power over
Yes.
our emotional life.
Yeah.
And when we are stuck in our emotions, it doesn't feel that way. I know it didn't feel that way for
Yeah.
me.
No.
I felt like I was my past, and I had
Right.
to. I mean, I thought my past was the truth about me. I remember when
Sure.
one of my first mentors said to me, "Rhonda, you're going to be a great coach," and I'd be like, "I can't be a coach. I mean, you don't understand. My father killed my mother. I saw it. I mean, I'm an alcoholic. I got DUIs." And I literally did not think I could transcend my past. I,
Sure.
I, I
Yeah.
absolutely 100% believe that.
Yeah.
And so that is when we start taking our power back, whether it's, drinking water, or whether it's identifying our emotions every hour
Right.
on the hour, whether it's asking ourselves, well, do I like this? Just taking those small moments.
Right.
All of a sudden we start seeing how much choice we really have.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that choice. I know I can hear one particular person in my coaching book that's saying, I hate that word, right? I hate that
Right.
word because it seems so simple, right? Choice seems so simple. What is your
Yes, it
thoughts on
does.
that?
It is definitely one of the hardest words, because when you make a choice, you're making a decision.
Yeah.
And then when you make a decision, you must follow through on that decision.
Right.
And most of us, including myself, have not been the greatest follower throughs, right?
Right.
We have this great idea. We get inspired, listening to us right now. Somebody out there is inspired, going, yes, yes, yes,
Hmm.
yes, I believe it. Yes, I am not my fear. I am not my traits. No, I can live the life my soul intended. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
But then their kids are sick, or
Right.
they're late for work, or their boss is grumpy, right? And then all of a sudden, all their good intentions wither away. And
Yeah.
so they don't trust themselves to follow through. They don't
Yeah.
trust themselves.
Yeah.
So making a choice just feels like another disappointment.
Yeah.
If I'm going to make another choice, what, I'm going to be another disappointment because I'm going to let myself down again. And that's where we must learn to, magic word, forgive.
Yeah. Mm.
Forgive ourselves for everything that happened before this moment. Forgive
Yeah.
ourselves for every time we let ourselves down. Forgive ourselves every time we blamed ourselves. Forgive ourselves
Mhm.
for every time we beat ourselves up. Forgive ourselves for ABC. And I do believe in daily forgiveness.
Yeah.
So, when we're able to have that relationship with ourselves and clean our slate every day, right?
Yeah.
Clean our slate every day so it doesn't accumulate.
Yeah.
But instead, we, build things up and we go, well, we're trying to build it up kind of to make it worse and worse and worse, so then maybe it'll crack. But
Right.
if but the gentle way to do it is simply to forgive, which again also is not as easy as it sounds.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
choice is the most powerful word,
Yeah.
because the minute you take your power back, minute you make a choice, you're taking your power back,
Right.
and you are no longer at the effect of the world, or no longer at the
Hmm.
effect of your past, or no longer at
Right.
the effect of your fear. And so you must
Yes.
decide to make
Yes.
choice your friend. And that is going to be a journey. But this
Yeah.
is what I know to be true. When you start that journey, you are going to have success faster than you believe.
Mm-hmm.
And you are going to feel the wind at your back sooner than you think.
Right.
And the way you feel right now will shift faster, and you will have openings and be able
Yes.
to breathe in
Yes.
ways that may have not been able to ever, or haven't
Mm-hmm.
lately because of circumstances in your life.
Right. So important that you point that out. I always say, look, if it's not happening the way that you're thinking it should, first and
Oh
foremost,
yeah,
should, yeah,
expectation.
yeah, yep, should be thrown out of our
Yep,
vocabulary
that's
first
right.
and
That's right.
foremost, right? But if
That's
it's
right.
not, then we probably aren't in full alignment of what we're looking for to begin with. And we need to kind of get back to the root, right? I think one of the big things that I want to do now is define, at least from your space, what the definition, because we need to know what our definitions, our individual definitions of our emotions are. But can you give me a baseline of what your definition of fear is versus what the fearlessness is before we start talking about how to get there, right?
Well, let me start with fear is the cause and effect
Hmm.
of your emotions, your experiences,
Yeah,
your decisions, right? It is the cause and effect. So that's why it feels like this hamster wheel when we're on it, right?
right.
And fearlessness, being fearless is uh it's not about jumping out of a plane. I cannot tell you how many
Right.
people approach me at a book signing and go, "Well, I'm really fearless because I'm." They're physically fearless, right?
Yeah,
They're physically fearless.
yeah.
But being physically fearless, that's nice. That's awesome. Yay,
It's great.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah, great work. Yeah. But I'm talking about emotional fearless.
yeah.
So I had this guy come up to me at a book signing in Atlanta, Georgia, Fearless Living, my first book. And he's like, "Oh, I'm fearless." And I'm like, "Great. Can I give you a little quiz?" And he's like, "Sure, you go ahead, And so I say to him, I go, "Great. Well, can you say I love you first? Can
Oof.
you say I'm sorry?
Mm,
Can you forgive?
hmm.
Have you let go of regrets?
Right.
Do you have no guilt?" Right. So, and of course, his face was like, "Wah, wah, 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 wah," like, oh crap. Because our body, brain, and heart do not know the difference between a physical fear and an
Yeah,
emotional fear.
exactly.
So we get caught in thinking that being physically fearless is somehow better than emotional fearless.
Right.
But really, being emotionally fearless is where it's all about.
Right. Yeah.
So can you supersede? Can you move beyond? It's not about jumping out of a plane, it's about jumping into life.
Right.
Can you
Yep.
make those choices? Can you do something that is hard?
Mm-hmm.
Can you say,
Hmm.
okay, I'm willing to take a risk? And the word willing is so critical here because
It is.
it's not about perfection, it's about
Yeah.
willingness, right? just
Yeah.
just being willing. So
Yeah.
just being willing, just being willing, just being willing. So fearlessness is about, are you willing to take the next step on your path in life? Just the next one. I don't care about 5 years from now. I don't care about 2 years from now. I don't care about
Right.
tomorrow. I don't care about 5 minutes from now. So if you made a commitment and say, well, okay, Rhonda says I'll feel better if I drink more water. Okay, I'll just drink another glass of water today. It's like, yeah, you will.
Yeah.
And then in the world of fearless living, I talk about doing something called acknowledgments and really acknowledging
Mm.
every tiny step. Like giving, today I acknowledge myself for, drinking 8 ounces of water instead of four,
Right.
and anything.
Yeah.
So fearlessness is really about being willing to jump into life and being willing to choose yourself,
Mm.
not over anyone, not over.
Right.
It's not about over.
Yeah.
It's about choosing yourself, including yourself in your own life.
Hmm. The next natural question is, and of course I know, but for everybody else listening is how?
I know it's really awesome, isn't it? How wonderful it is. No, I mean, it's so wonderful because the how is where I got caught up in
Mm.
for decades of my life.
Right.
I would read books, I'd read spiritual books, I'd read personal development books, I would be, and they'd just say, have more confidence or
Yeah.
love yourself. And I'd be like, okay, if you don't know how to love yourself, how do you love yourself? And it would just
Right.
say, love yourself and have more confidence. You got to be a more confident person. Well, if I don't have confidence, how do I have more confidence?
Exactly.
And so, how is actually my forte because
Mm.
I was so sick of having people tell me
Right.
what to do or tell me how to be.
Yeah.
But nobody said, "Hey, Rhonda, by the way, this is how you do it."
Right.
And I'm talking about step by step. I'm talking about the exercises I already shared with you, which is the gold stars, which is, keeping track for 30 days.
Right.
Do I like this? Is this really true for me? Just asking yourself simple questions during the day,
Yeah.
just to start understanding where you fit into your own life,
Yes. Ooh,
right?
what a
Where,
good,
where,
yeah.
right? Where do you fit in your own life?
Yeah.
And what is it that you've taken on
Hmm.
that you've done out of obligation? And
Yeah.
again, you still might want to do it, but you took it on out of obligation. You never chose it, right? So many
Right.
people do things out of obligation, but and they want to do it, but they haven't chosen it.
Yeah.
So it's about asking. One of the exercises, I'll give a very simple exercise that I give to my clients.
Hmm.
So I ask them to start keeping track every hour on the hour what they're doing. Just
Right.
hour every hour. Just, hey, I'm taping a podcast. I'm filming a podcast, right? Or, oh, I'm drinking a glass of water. Or, oh, I'm at work with my boss. Oh, I'm waking up the kids. Whatever it is.
Right.
And then next to it, write the word, is this a should or a choice?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
And the first week you do this every hour on the hour as best you
Right.
can, you're going to have a lot of shoulds.
Yeah.
Now, again, I know you're smart and you already know it's a choice. I get that you're smart. Everyone's smart that's listening. I know that you're smart, right, or watching. But I really want you to tell me how you feel. If it feels like a should, write a should.
Right.
I have to pick up the kids from school. No, actually, no, you don't. You don't. You could
Yeah.
they could walk, or you could well, they're only 4. Well, yeah, but they could.
Yeah.
So right. So it's all this obligation, all this burden, right? All these
Right.
shoulds that take away our life force, that take away our energy. So just keeping track of all the things you do from a place of should and choice for 1 week, just 1 week,
Right.
and then the next week do write everything as a choice.
Yeah.
And you will start noticing how pissed you get,
Yeah.
and how upset you get and angry you get, because I don't want to make this a choice.
Yeah.
Well, sweetheart, you did. You made it a choice. Okay.
Right.
So just recognizing how much of your life you are draining yourself
Yeah.
versus feeding yourself. Now, I want to say one thing. This does not mean not driving your kids to school, and this does not mean not going to work.
Right.
But once you understand that must be a choice, then you make it a choice. Like, you literally make it a choice. I'm choosing to go to work. Okay, well, feel that feeling like, well, but I don't want to. Okay, well, why
Yeah.
not?
Right.
Well, I don't like my boss. Okay, well, how do you work with him? Well, he just talks to me bad. Okay, well, what can you do about it?
Right.
What can you do about it? So it's about taking our power back. So that's one of the very
Hmm.
first exercises, that we can do. I have this wonderful exercise that's called control and no control. I'll
Mm.
give another exercise. So you take a lovely piece of paper, you put it in 2 columns.
Yeah.
Left hand side, you write the word control, and the right hand column, you write no control.
Right.
And the left, so take a problem, any problem. Oh, going to work, my boss, whatever it is, whatever you got.
Yeah.
I want to build a business. I want to make $1 million. I want to fall in love. I want to get divorced. I want to get whatever it is.
Yeah.
On the left hand side, write all the things you control,
Yeah.
everything that you have power over. On the right, all the things you don't have control over.
Yeah.
I bet you money that most people, I've seen this in my client after client after client, that most people are focused on the things they can control
Of course.
and are upset about it, wanting them to change, like, why isn't this happening? Instead of taking care of business
Hmm.
and doing the things they control. Now, on the control side, it's not just a list. It's also next to each thing you control. I want you to write 1 to 10. 10 is I ace this out. I'm amazing at this. I'm amazing at this. Or 1 is like, I suck at this, but I know I control it, but I don't do anything about it.
Right.
And client after client after client that I've worked with, when they do this list, and businesses, I work with 6, 7, 8-figure businesses.
Right.
When they do this list and they start recognizing that the things they control, they're doing it a 4, a 3, a
Right.
5.
Yeah.
Right. So they're not doing what they can.
Right.
And therefore they're over in the no control, feeling powerless, but they have so much power over here. So instead, focus on the things you can control. Ask yourself on a
Hmm.
scale of 1 to 10, how can I get it up to a 3 to a 4? And then if you're a God girl, if you're a spiritual person, the things you can control, just cross off no control and say God, spirit, universe,
Yeah.
source, higher self, whatever you want, and go, they're in charge of that. They're
Right.
in charge of that. So when you really focus on what is in front of you and what you have power over,
Right.
and what you can choose, make that choice, then you start feeling sovereignty over yourself. You start feeling agency. And when you start feeling sovereignty, you start going, well, wait a minute. I do have more power. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you
Yeah.
do.
Hmm.
But when we're told just be confident and just love yourself when you don't know how, that's a tall order.
It is.
But this is what I know to be true is that confidence is a result. It is not a precursor. So you
Hmm.
must take a risk to build confidence. You're not getting, you don't have confidence first.
Right.
You only get confidence by taking risks.
Yeah. It reminds me of sort of this model that I created and I teach so often, and people have heard it here, where we talk about, if things are not working out or we're in this
Mm-hmm.
space, right? What we're really fundamentally looking at is there's no safety. And
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right. So there's no
Yeah.
safety. And from there, we can't have trust, which is the next
That's right.
piece on that model. And then the next piece of that's respect. And then the next piece of that's love or freedom, right? We can't
That's right.
have those things.
Yes.
And, there is no agency without that safety. And
Yes.
the emotion that's so easy to pick without safety is fear.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yes, and most people are waiting to feel safe with somebody else, right?
Yes.
They're
Oh,
like, well, I'm not safe with this person, or I don't trust them. And as you and I'm sure, preach on a regular basis, is safety is internal. If
yes.
you got to get your own internal safety, which you got means you have to be willing to take care of yourself, meaning
Right.
that you've got to do it, you've got to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And most people want other people to make them feel safe. And
Yes.
the same thing with trust.
Yeah.
I don't trust them. I don't trust men. I don't trust my boss. I don't trust. It's like, do you trust yourself?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they're waiting for somebody to come in that they can trust, which means what they're really wanting that person to do is to care more about them than they are
Yes.
about themselves. They want
Yeah.
them, they want that other person to choose them and love them more,
Yeah.
right? So instead, what do you do to keep yourself safe? What do you do to make yourself feel safe? How do you fill yourself up with yourself?
Yeah.
And then how do you practice trusting yourself? It's not even about other people,
Right.
first of all. It's about
Yeah.
trusting yourself.
Yeah.
And, so many people come to me, well, I can't do that because I don't trust them. It's like, okay, that's nice. I don't care about you not trusting them at this moment. I want to hear how you trust yourself. I want to hear what your
Right.
relationship is. What do you do when you don't trust yourself? How
Yeah.
do you trust yourself? How do you know that
Yeah.
you can trust yourself?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I find that, like, the whole conversation of boundaries, it's like,
Yeah.
we want that person. I can't do that person, like the whole toxic people situation drives me cuckoo crazy, because so many people are like, get rid of those toxic people. And
Yeah.
are there toxic people? Yes, there are
Sure.
toxic people.
Yeah.
But so many of the toxic people aren't actually toxic. They're actually, but you don't know how to put a boundary up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so you just get rid of them. You just get
Yep.
rid of them
Yeah.
instead of learning the skills you need to in order to say no and say
Right.
yes and say not okay. And that's
Mm-hmm.
not right.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't
Mm-hmm.
approve of that. And I'm going to walk
Right.
over here and I'm going to take care of myself. So we just get rid of people.
Yeah.
So we never learn the skills of boundaries. We never learn the
Yeah.
skills of taking care of ourselves. We never learn the skill of, wait a minute, what respect do I give myself?
Yeah.
So I'm singing with you in the choir. I'm singing in the
Yeah.
choir. Yeah.
I think too, we slap these labels on people when we can't bend their will to match
Yes.
our desire, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
you're so
yeah.
toxic because you will
Yeah.
not do what I need right now,
That's
right? I'm
right.
like,
That's right. That's
all
right.
right, that's cute,
You're
right?
being mean. You're being
Yeah,
mean.
that's cute.
It's like, okay, there are toxic people per se, but most of them, you just talk to them differently and
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
treat yourself like the
Yeah,
fine person and human being you are. And you just look at them and like, that's interesting. Like, okay,
yeah,
that's,
yeah.
that's not about me.
It's not that
It's not
hard.
your business. It's not,
Right.
it's really hard when you start.
Yeah,
And then once you get it, once it clicks over, you're like, oh,
got
okay.
it. Yep.
But in the beginning, oh my God, I was
Yes.
petrified. I mean,
Yeah.
I really, really, really did believe people had power over me. I really, really
Yeah.
did believe my past was who I was. I really, really did believe that I was powerless. I really, really
Hmm.
believed that. And by the way, if you would have met me, I would have still been like this. I
Yeah.
still would have been like, ah, you know.
Yeah.
So, but inside, that's how I felt.
Makes total sense, right? I mean, you're in an experience that does absolutely take your power away, and then that self-assignment is very natural, especially at that age, right? That makes total sense to me.
Yeah. And this is the thing for me is I do believe that, fear is developed by the time we're 5, 7 years old.
Agreed.
And the model I've created in paramount to yours is the wheel of fear and the wheel of freedom. And once you
Yeah.
understand how your wheel works and how fear works for you and what your individualized core fear is, then it does get easier because there is some guidance, just like
Right.
yours, the safety. It's like, okay, wait a minute. Do I feel safe? Wait, do I feel safe? Let me ask that first. Right. And then, okay, wait, I feel safe. Okay, wait, I can keep myself safe. Okay, great. Now, do I trust myself? Okay, wait, right. We want to step by step in it. And
Yeah.
so, you're not stupid because you're afraid. You're not weak because you're afraid. You're not selfish because you're afraid. You're a human being, and I'm human, and I have fear. And, Danielle has fear. We all have fear. There's
Right.
nobody that gets out of this world without fear.
Right.
So there's no getting rid of fear. It's
Right.
part of our neurobiology. So, my whole thing is, can you build a relationship with fear so you can start feeling safe, and you can start trusting yourself, right? And you can, start living the life your soul intended. Can you do that? Because if fear's on patrol, it's harder to do it.
Yeah. Let's talk about that, building a relationship with our fear. You just told us sort of that checkpoint in as to what am I doing? Does this belong to me? Is this mine? Is this a should?
Yes.
How do we build that sort of innate, almost intimate relationship with
Mm.
fear so that it no longer is that lead point, but more of a partner?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is what I call my wheel of fear.
Mm.
And my wheel of fear has four components. And the component that we've already been talking about is the second one, called the fear responses.
Hmm.
So when I first start working with somebody, I ask them to start making a list of their fear responses, all the things they think are character flaws, all the things they wish they
Right.
didn't do, all the things they like. Oh God, I hate myself when I do this. God, I wish
Right.
oh, I give in too easy. Oh, I'm such a sucker. Oh, I beat myself up. I don't believe that I can blah blah blah. Again, whatever it is, right? So procrastination, people pleasing, overwhelm, anxiety, you name it.
Right.
And so think of a flower, think of a plant. Let's think of a flower, and there's a root, right? There's a
Hmm.
root, and then there's, let's say, the little five little buds on your flower,
Yeah.
and each bud is one of those things. Your biggest five responses, and people
Right.
know what they blame themselves for. People know
Yeah.
their fear responses, right? I feel guilty all the time. Like I said, people pleasing, procrastination, etc. So
Right.
those are your five. Let's just say those are your main five fear responses, things you do when fear
Hmm.
is on patrol. By the way, those things don't come up when you're sitting on the couch eating Doritos. So those things only happen
Right.
when you are even contemplating taking a risk will
Right.
cause those things to pop up. And not even doing it yet, just even
Yeah.
thinking about it,
Yeah.
right? Will cause those things to shut us down.
Right.
So, so we have these fear responses, and like we've talked about, we think they're character flaws. We think they're who we are. They think we're, they're traits.
Yeah.
So let's just say let's say procrastination. We go to procrastination school, which, by the way, that's the gift I'm going to give, so people can take a class on procrastination and learn about their wheel of fear. But, let's say we take that procrastination class and we get rid of procrastination, or we
Hmm.
get rid of people pleasing.
Right.
Well, fear doesn't care
Hmm.
how it stops you.
Right.
So if you quit calling yourself stupid, yay for you. Awesome. That's fantastic, right? That's fantastic. But fear will just come up with something else to stop you,
Right.
because fear literally believes it's keeping you alive,
Yep.
because it literally is. Okay.
Hmm.
So it's, like I said, it's part of our neurobiology. There's no getting rid of fear.
Hmm.
So there's no like, oh, Rhonda, can I? No, you can't. So if you ever see a class going, never be afraid again,
Yeah.
baloney poloney, that
Run.
person is lying. That's a
Right.
shyster. Don't take it, because that's not true.
Hmm.
So what we talk about is, okay, so you get rid of one of those fear responses, but the core fear, what you have, the driver, what I call the core fear, is just going to create a new fear response.
Right.
And that's why when you feel like you get over something, I ask people all the time, well, do you ever feel like you're repeating, something you thought you got over it, you thought you healed, you thought you were over
Right.
it, you thought, like, oh, I can't believe I'm doing it again. Well, it's because fear's like, well, that was a good one. Let's bring that one back.
Yeah.
That's a good part of our repertoire. Let's make that, let's pop that
Right.
up now. Right. Because fear wants to keep you alive. And
Yeah.
that's what you need to hear, right? Fear only cares about you breathing
Yeah.
and being alive. And it will do anything to stop you from putting you in a place, whether it's emotional,
Right.
physical, you know, it doesn't matter, that may cause you harm.
Hmm.
And that is the unknown, because fear only lives, it only wants to keep you in the known.
Yeah.
And so in the present moment, you have a problem, right? Oh, I want to change jobs. I want to find love again, whatever the problem is. If you do not make that conscious choice, as we talked about earlier, if you don't make a choice, your automatic response, the way our brain and body work, automatic response is that fear will have you look in the past for a solution to your present problem.
Yeah.
And you're hoping it gives you a different future.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And this is even if you think you're coming up with a new solution,
Right.
but it's really an old solution, right?
Yeah.
So unless we build a relationship with fear and understand what I call labeling our core fear, right? Once we label our core fear, and once we see how it operates in each person, it doesn't operate differently in each person. In each person, it's the same wheel. The wheel is the wheel of the wheel.
Right.
Once you start operating it, you'll be able to see it in your life and go, you mean that's not me? And go, no, that's actually not you. That's your wheel of fear. That's
Right.
not you. And then what I teach people how to do is not only identify their core fear, which of course is critical, but also to jump over to the wheel of freedom, which is where they
Mhm.
then find their true alignment, as you brought up earlier, the word alignment.
Right.
The alignment with your, all parts of you are on go then,
Mhm.
because there's a part of you that you left behind before you were 7 that was not safe to express.
Yeah.
And this could be handed down through your DNA. It could not even be about your family life. It could not be about your school. It could be, you may not have any memory. And that's why when people go, why am I like this? Why am I like this? It's like, that's not the question. We may never find out why you're like this. We may never find the moment, because there is no one moment. And
Right.
people want why. I know I did. Why? Forget why. Why is
Yeah.
a waste of energy. Again, it's interesting. It's curious. You can talk about it. You can do journaling. But if
Right.
you want to move your life forward, you got to move beyond why and go, okay, well, wait a minute. If every human being, by the time they were 5, 6 years old, developed what Rhonda calls the wheel of fear, then I have one too.
Right.
What's mine? And then more importantly, I want the wheel of freedom. Like, how do
Right.
I escape? Right?
Right.
How do I get
Yeah.
off it? And the cool thing is, the number one thing I hear when clients find their wheel of fear is they go, my life makes sense.
Yeah.
And all the guilt, the burden, the shame dissolves, because they now can see it's not them.
Mhm.
It's how the wheel of fear is, the way the wheel of fear works. If we're not conscious and shifted, it's just an automatic response.
Right. I think the most important thing to understand is that you are not your fear. You just beautifully said, there are all of these anchors that
That's right.
they're trying to keep you in that place. Coping
That's right.
mechanism. I always say, can we applaud the coping mechanism?
Yes,
Literally kept
exactly.
you
Woo!
alive, right? Like,
Woo! That's
yes,
right.
right?
Yes. I love that drunk girl. I love that
Yes,
drunk girl that I was when I was 18. I was 22. I love her.
right.
I
I
mean, she
love
got me
her.
here. God, I
Yep.
love
Yep.
her. She just
Exactly.
drank her way to, just crawling on the ground, drinking away. It's like, yeah, you go, girl. You kept yourself going. God, good
Exactly.
on you. But then you're
Exactly.
28, then you're 30, then you're 40. It's like, God, maybe you
Got to
want
figure that out.
new mechanisms,
Yeah.
right?
Got to
But
figure
it
this
kept me
out.
alive. It kept me
Yeah.
alive.
I really, truly, I'm that same way. I'm like, can we just throw it a parade? Like, it's okay, right? The overeating, the drinking, the binging,
Yeah,
whatever it is,
yeah,
right?
that's
Like,
right.
thank
That's right.
God. I think
Thank
it's
God you did
important.
it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
important, right? And everybody like, you're crazy. I'm like, okay, but
No, yeah,
I
no. I'm
promise
with
you.
you, Danielle. I'll
Yeah,
get on the parade with you. Maybe we
yeah,
need to have a parade.
exactly. So we have that, right? So we have the choice to get into freedom once we identify that I am not my fear. I am not this wheel.
That's right.
Conscious choice, obviously. Action takes a lot of effort, right? I have people every
That's
day that
right.
go, this is so much work.
Yes,
It
yes,
is.
yes, yes,
How do
yes.
we keep
Yes,
going?
it's awareness work.
Yeah,
So that's the thing. And our awareness, when we first become aware, is exhausting,
it is.
because paying attention
Yeah,
is exhausting.
yeah,
So you have to remember that what you're exhausted about is awareness.
yeah,
That's what's tiring,
yeah.
is staying awake. And then you must
Mm.
ask yourself, well, do I want to build my ability to stay more awake?
Right.
And I think most people's answer is yes, because
Yeah.
you don't want to go through life, blind to your own,
Mhm. Mhm.
your own choices.
Yep.
So you're not exhausted because you're stupid. You're not exhausted because, you're doing something wrong. You're exhausted because you are literally practicing being awake. I'll
Yeah.
give a really stupid example. When I was, I had no children, and my sister had two, and she asked me to come and stay at her house for a week to take care of her little kids, right?
Yeah.
They were like 2 and 5, right?
Yep.
And I'm like, sure, I can do it, right? Well, taking care of a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old when you don't have any kids.
Exhausting.
And I was like begging for 8 o'clock. I was like begging because they went to bed
Yes.
at 8. I was like, please, Lord Jesus. And I crawled into bed at 8, right? Because I was so
Right.
exhausted. When I was waitressing and started working a full-time job, 8 to 5, the first 3 weeks I worked 8 to 5, I was in bed by 9 o'clock. I was
Right.
exhausted.
Right.
So that's what you're doing. It's not that you're dumb or weak or stupid. It's that
Yep.
your awareness, and that's a good sign. Yay,
Yes.
I'm tired.
Yeah.
Wow, that means I'm awake.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
So just so this is something to applaud when you're crawling into
Yeah.
bed being exhausted. And love your courage, love your bravery, love, like, oh my god, I'm tired and this is good. Yes, it is.
Hmm.
Because then you will build your momentum up, and eventually you will not have to go to bed at 8 o'clock if you don't want to, right? But in
Exactly.
the beginning it is exhausting.
It is.
And I'm actually going to give an exercise to your listeners, to your viewers, and it is an exercise called stretch, risk, or die.
Mm.
And it is basically talking about the things that we're talking about today, which is, how do
Okay.
you build that awareness? How do you build that? How do you take those risks? How do you build that confidence? How do
Hmm.
you how do you move past fear? And it is my client's very favorite exercise. It's a very simple exercise. So far, I think I've given
Nice.
2, 3, 4 exercises so
You
far.
have.
So this
Yeah.
so so this is going to be another how. Well, you asked me how, so I'm a big
Yes.
how gal. So if you go over to fearlessliving.org/risk, RISK, fearlessliving.org/risk, RISK,
Hmm.
excuse me, /risk, RISK, you're going to take a class called Stretch, Risk, or Die. And it is, like I said, my clients, one of their favorite tools. And it's going to show you what keeps stopping you. It's going to
Mm.
show you process of going through the wheel of fear. So you're going to actually see the wheel of fear in motion.
Okay.
And it's only 3 15-minute videos. And it's got workbook and examples. So it's super easy. And
Right.
this is going to help you achieve any goal, any dream, anything you want to shift. I'm going to give you the whole roadmap on how to do that. Super easy, super
Beautiful.
simple, a quick little exercise so you can know how to do things.
So important. Thank you for doing that. And we'll put
My
all of that
pleasure.
information in the show notes so that you are not looking for it, everyone. And you can also find it on my website. You will see that there, right? How is such an important thing? I want to kind of go back for just a moment when you were talking about your niece and nephew, talking about that. When I talk to people about that awareness, and just to put another thing in your head, is that when I talk about it and I'm trying to teach someone, then I'm like, remember when you were first born? And they're like, no. I'm like, great. That's great. I'm glad that you don't remember that,
Yeah,
right?
exactly, exactly,
Good. But
exactly.
what happened was that your brain needed some development. And so you were
That's right.
very
That's right.
sleepy all the time, right?
All the time.
You only
That's
woke
right.
up to eat and to have that nourishment and that connection, and then you went back to sleep. And we were
Yeah,
back and forth in that, just
that's right.
like if you are a parent now, you watch that child do that. And
Yep,
that awareness took a lot of energy. There was a lot of
that's
downtime. There
right.
was a lot of learning. There was a lot
That's
of
right.
connection. And all of that was a very innate but humbling process. It didn't happen
Yeah,
overnight, right? So
that's
when we're
right.
talking about that awareness and that awake period, remember, we had to sleep. We have to come
Yeah,
into that connection. We have to
that's
sleep
right.
again, right? We have to
That's
get
right.
it in the growth period. So
That's right.
important. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And so it's really about how well can you take care of yourself while
Mm.
you're becoming awake,
Yeah.
you know? And
Yeah.
when you become more awake and aware, when you become more conscious, by the way, consciousness is just awareness.
Right.
And when you become more aware, you have more choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's the prize. That's the
Yeah.
prize. And the prize is, okay, I'm going to sleep, but I'm going to have more choice, and I'm going to know who I am, and I'm going to fall in love with myself, because that's the
Mhm.
point. You're not going to have to figure out how to love yourself. You're going to fall in love with yourself.
Yeah.
And that is just a mere result
Hmm.
of you doing these loving things for yourself, which is practicing becoming aware and sleeping more and drinking more water and taking exquisite care of yourself
Yeah.
while you are waking up.
Right. So you've given some baselines of the how, right? Very
Mm-hmm.
important exercises, and actually we'll put them in the web into the show notes as well. The
Mm-hmm.
most important thing that I think we should address now so that somebody can actually get started beyond taking the class is to eliminate the I can't believe it took me so long.
Ah, well, this is where we go back to forgiveness, right?
Yeah.
When you're willing to see your innocence,
Hmm.
when you're willing to see your own innocence
Yeah.
and say, oh my gosh, I've been on this road. And if you believe in destiny, if you are willing to believe in destiny,
Yeah.
then I do believe that we are on this conversation at this moment, at this time, in
Yeah.
this second, right?
Hmm.
Because this is the moment for you.
Right.
And everything you've experienced up to now, whether you're 70, 42, 38, 26, doesn't matter how old you are.
Yeah.
Everything you've experienced up until this moment was needed and necessary for you to do your next phase. And so every bad mistake you made, you call it bad. Oh, everything you beat yourself up for, all of that. Think of it as the more you have kept yourself small or kept yourself
Mm.
down is how bright your light is. And
Yeah.
so that fear has had to really push you down, right? Because your light is
Hmm.
so bright.
Right.
And you have been listening and learning, all these little things have been coming in. You are going to have insights and ahas, and you are going to grow. Once you catch the flame, your fire is going to grow pretty
Yeah.
gosh darn fast.
Yeah.
So, it's about getting over the moat, right? It's about getting over the sharks, right? Getting over the alligators, right? Getting over it and saying, okay, I'm willing to get over the moat. I'm
Right.
willing to walk across the bridge. And once you do that, the castle's over there. And oh, by the way, you already know a lot of ways to go around the castle because you learned
Right.
them while you were in your most dysfunction.
Right.
In our dysfunction, our displaced, self-hatred or disrespect or whatever you want to call it, has been, you've been learning tools and skills. You've been gaining knowledge,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
So you just don't know that because you don't know how to
Hmm.
apply it yet. But
Right.
when you start waking up and you think to yourself, what's too late? It's like, oh no, my sweet girl. No, 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 no,
No.
no, no.
No.
It's the perfect time. This is exactly when you're supposed to do it. You are
Yeah.
exactly at the right time.
Hmm.
And then you move through forgiveness work and forgive yourself for the past. Forgive yourself for everything that you beat
Yeah.
yourself up for. Forgive those people that hurt you or harmed you. Again, don't have to have lunch with them, but like literally like scrape the past off your back.
Yeah.
Take the burden off your back. I remember when I forgave my parents, my father was the easiest to forgive. My mother was harder to forgive, and I was the hardest to
Mm.
forgive.
Right.
So, and some people go, how can your mother be hard to forgive? Well, I had to take her off the pedestal of, like, oh, my mother.
Yeah.
Oh, right. I had to look at her
Yeah.
as a woman to woman. Right? I'm a
Right.
woman. She's a woman. Oh, I see. She got caught up in pleasing my father. Oh, she was afraid
Right.
to leave. Oh, okay. Like I had to look at her as a flawed human being and take her off the
Hmm.
pedestal. And then I could truly forgive her and give myself grace as well. Right.
Right.
But once I forgave myself, once I forgave them, I remember I did a big ceremony and I describe in Fearless Living, my book. And I remember walking away from that day. And I remember saying to myself, these are the first steps that I've ever walked that are on my own. And it was 20 years
Yeah.
after my parents died. So they died when I was 14.
Yeah.
And 20 years, I carried them on my back,
Yeah.
you know? And I didn't even know it because that's the thing too. I didn't even know it until I took them off my back and I went, I can breathe. I
Mm.
didn't even know. I didn't even know I
Mm.
was carrying all that.
Right.
So the good news is, and I know this is a cliche, but it's like you're literally just a choice away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you just have to make one choice and then, take a nap.
Hmm. Get into that place
yeah,
of
yeah, do
rebuilding.
do some acknowledgements,
Yeah.
drink some water, do another choice and,
Yeah.
get some sleep and
Hmm.
keep a list of all your fear responses and keep a list of all the things like this is what I need to learn.
Yeah.
And one by one, you will learn them. And this is the cool thing is it'll happen faster than you think.
Yeah.
You'll be more shocked and amazed at yourself.
Yeah.
And you will be so proud of
Yeah.
yourself. for taking the step.
You will. I love the words that you said. These are the first steps I've taken. Right. And it's not too late. It's never going to be in a space that it's like, oh
That's right.
gosh, now I'm 50, I'm 60. It's too late for me.
No.
No. Isn't it better if you only had 10 years left? Isn't it better to live
Yes.
those 10 years with this
Yes.
immaculate self
Yes.
understanding, this life that is open? Yes, right? The
Yes. I,
yes.
I've had clients come when they're 65, 72.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had a man come who was a president of a huge company,
Right.
and he had been doing some personal development, but still was all baloney peloted, right?
Right.
And I think he was 65, and he decided, he had, again, he ran a company. He
Right.
was on magazine covers, okay?
Right.
And he was like, I need to figure this out, right? And so
Yeah.
he found his wheel of fear, and his life has catapulted. I mean, he's how old is he now? I want to say he's 82 now,
I love it.
and he's living his life. Like he
Yeah.
and his wife. I've had couples come, and I had one couple who they were divorced when they came to Fearless Living. The man actually got into Fearless Living first, which is, I'm
Mm.
telling you, two men stories, which is fascinating right now.
Yes, it is.
Because it's mostly women's stories, but
Yeah.
this man found Fearless Living first. He and his wife were already divorced,
Hmm.
and he realized when he was reading Fearless Living, like, what if he and his wife both did it? Like, this is their problem. Like, the fear is the problem that separated
Yeah.
them. So
Yeah.
he called his divorced ex-wife and said, "Hey, would you do this with me?" She said yes.
Mm.
They came to one of my book signing, and they were giddy teenagers. They were like, "Oh my God." I mean, it it gives you a way to talk about your frustrations and pains without blame,
Mhm.
shame. It takes away the guilt, it takes away the regret, it takes away the worry, it takes away all of it, and just
Yeah.
makes it clearly like, oh, this is when I'm operating out of fear, and this is when I'm operating out of freedom. Got it.
Right.
Super simple.
Yeah. We are going to put up the website and the book because I know that this is going to be a game changer for everyone. And it's definitely a necessity, not just to throw on the night table, but to actually put it into action, ladies and gentlemen that are listening. So we're going
Yeah.
to do that. Is there one thing that you wish people knew, like this ultimate takeaway? And I hate to even say
Yeah.
that we're going to be wrapping it up because I could talk to you for the next 10 hours. But what is the one thing that you want people to hear and say, ah, that was my aha moment?
There is nothing wrong with you. It's
Mm,
just fear. There is nothing wrong with you. There is nothing wrong with you. It
yeah,
is just fear.
right. Yeah,
And a fear is lying to you, and it's just because it loves you so much. Fear
yeah,
loves you so much. It's just trying to
uh-huh,
keep you safe. So
yeah.
there's nothing wrong with you. It's just fear.
Ah, I love that reframe. Fear loves you so much.
It loves you so much.
It loves you
It's
so
just doing a
much.
really good job of keeping
Yeah,
you small and safe because that's its job. Again, remember,
yeah,
fear doesn't care that you're happy. It could
yeah,
give a crap.
yeah,
So fear is to keep you safe and alive, and it loves you, and it's doing a really good job.
yeah.
So
Yeah, I love that reframe. I really do because boy, does that make it so much more intimate and so much more of a thing that you can grab onto, right? Because you can change what you actually witness. So that is a beautiful, beautiful reframe.
that's right.
We end the podcast the same way, and I hope you'll indulge me, which is for me to ask you, what are three things that you are innately grateful for right now?
Oh, right now I'm really grateful that me and my parents made this agreement up in heaven to
Mm,
come down and have this horrific experience together
yeah.
that would wake me up and allow me to be here with you. I'm really grateful for that.
Mm, mm,
Um, Two, I'm really, really grateful that we as a community, we as a country, we as a nation are being forced in a way to wake up in ways that we never wanted to,
yeah.
never asked for. But this whole experience we are collectively living
Yeah.
is a chance for all of us to wake up.
Yeah.
And three, I am so grateful that each of us has agency and power over our lives.
Amen.
And if you really claim and really know that you have agency, that you have sovereignty over yourself, and you
Mhm.
have the power to live in that agency, then I hate to be cliche, but anything really is possible.
Yeah. I don't think it's cliche at all. I think it is truth. And it's
Yes.
something that if we claim it, it becomes the reality. So claim it. What is your truth? Does it look and does it feel organic? And if it doesn't, it's not in alignment, and therefore it's probably not your truth. So, Rhonda, thank you so much for your time, for the in-depth conversation. Again, I hope that you'll come back on because I feel like we didn't even scratch the
Oh,
surface.
absolutely. My
I
pleasure.
I love it. And I really just want to empower all that is listening right now that to remember fear is in charge. It loves you so much and that you can do something about it. So thank you for your time, your wisdom, and the intentionality you brought today.
Thank you. My pleasure. Be fearless.
It's so powerful to hear Rhonda's story, to think about how many of us face the unimaginable and stand to not only tell our stories, but live a different life because of them. We'll be placing Rhonda's information in our show notes so you can visit and take that class and look at your wheel of fear. It's a beautiful gift that's available to all of us, and I hope you will take a look. I want to truly, sincerely thank you so much for listening to the Get Your Life Together Girl podcast. If you're not already following me on social media, please do so at Get Your Life Together Girl on Instagram, TikTok, Clapper, Lemon8, YouTube, Pinterest, and even Insight Timer. If you have not followed me on Insight Timer, it is a free app. Go to your app store and download it. I offer a free class on Mondays at 9 a.m. Central, just like the podcast, but you're able to ask questions live. So I hope that you'll follow me on Insight Timer and listen there as well. It's content that you're not getting anywhere else. It doesn't appear here or on social media. I hope you'll join that. If you are an Apple subscriber, please go to our content membership on your app. It's $6.99 for exclusive content and information, meditations, courses, and so much more. If you haven't visited getyourlifetogethergirl.com, do so, where you'll find blog and downloads and all kinds of merch. And I hope that you find something that will help you in your growth journey. As always, I can't thank you enough for being such a valuable member of this community. Until we meet again, be kind to yourself and others.